Hi friends, here I am going to introduce about a famous philosopher called Saint Anselm of Canterbury. Welcome to Central Library of DVK, Philosophers Gallery. First of all, I am going to tell you about the early life and career of Saint Anselm of Canterbury. Anselm was born around 1033 in the Piedmont region of northwestern Italy. His birthplace was Aosta. His mother, Ermenberga, belonged to a noble Burgundian family and possessed considerable property. His father, Gondolfo. Anselm was known as the father of scholasticism. He was recognized in modern times as the originator of the ontological argument for the existence of God. Anselm received an excellent classical education and was considered one of the better Latinists of his day. His early education impressed on him the need to be precise in his use of words, and his writings became known for their clarity. In 1057, Anselm left Aosta to enter the Benedictine monastery at Bec because he wanted to study under the monastery's renowned prior Lanfranc. In 106 he took his monastic vows. Under Anselm, Bec became a center of monastic learning and some theological questioning. Lanfranc had been a renowned theologian, but Anselm surpassed him. He continued his efforts to satisfactorily answer questions concerning the nature and existence of God. Here is his famous works, the Proslogion, the Monologion, Cur Deus Homo, De Grammatico, and many more. And here is his contributions. Saint Anselm was one of the most important Christian thinkers of the 11th century. He is most famous in philosophy for having discovered and articulated the so-called ontological argument, and in theology for his doctrine of the atonement. And here I am going to introduce about some of his awesome books. First of all, Cur Deus Homo. In Cur Deus Homo, Anselm of Canterbury maintains that the heroism of Christ's self-sacrifice makes satisfaction for the infinite offense of sin and thus accomplishes the redemption of humanity. Drawing on a form of double effect reasoning, he maintains that God wills the heroism of Christ's self-sacrifice but not his actual suffering and death. In this way, Anselm attempts to secure the salvific efficacy of the crucifixion event and at the same time avoid implying that God is pleased by cruelty. Anselm's theory of redemption cannot avoid implying that God wills moral evil. Then, in light of this exegetical analysis, it identifies structural flaws in Anselm's theory of redemption, especially with respect to his aesthetics and his Trinitarian theology that make this implication inevitable. And next, I am going to tell another book called the Monologion. In 1077, Anselm had written the Monologion at the request of some of his fellow monks. A theological treatise, the Monologion was both apologetic and religious in intent. It attempted to demonstrate the existence and attributes of God by an appeal to reason alone rather than by the customary appeal. Like Augustine, Anselm used both faith and reason in his search for truth. Faith comes first in his view, but reason should follow, giving reasons for what human beings believe. And next, the Proslogion, his famous book. The Proslogion is a prayer or meditation. It was written in 1077 to 1078, serving to reflect on the attributes of God in order to explain how God can possess seemingly contradictory qualities. This meditation is considered to be the first known philosophical formulation that sets out the ontological argument for the existence of God. The Proslogion marked that would be the beginning of Saint Anselm's famous and highly controversial ontological arguments for the existence of God. Christian believers who seek a rational basis for their belief in God. God is a being than which none greater can be conceived. This is his arguments. If existence in reality is greater than existence in the mind alone, an imaginary being who exists only in a mind is not a being than which none greater can be conceived. A being than which none greater can be conceived must also exist in reality, where failure to do so would be a failure to be such. And here he gives solution for his argument. Thus a being than which none greater can be conceived must exist, and we call this being God. The Proslogion contains his most famous proof of the existence of God. This begins with a datum of faith. Humans believe God to be the being that which none greater can be conceived. Some, like the fool in the Psalms, say there is no God. But even the fool, on hearing these words, understands them, and what he understands exists in his intellect, even though he does not grant that such a being exists in reality. But it is greater to exist in reality and in the understanding than to exist in the understanding alone. It is contradictory to hold that God exists only in the intellect, for then the being than which none greater can be conceived is one than which a greater can be conceived, namely, one that exists both in reality and in the understanding. Here is his some influence in the society. As we know that Anselm was influenced in many societies. In 1093, he was summoned to England to become the Archbishop of Canterbury, succeeding his master and spiritual director Lanfranc. Anselm's years at Canterbury were not lacking in political controversy. He showed great courage in disputing William II and Henry I in regard to ecclesiastical abuses that were being visited upon the church by those kings. Twice he was banished while making appeals in Rome. Twice he returned to Canterbury. His abilities as an extraordinary theologian, negotiator, and statesman having added luster and authority to the cause of the church. So friends, here I have put forward some questions for you. The first question, what is Anselm's argument based on? That is, of course, ontological argument. And next, he was known as the father of The answer is scholasticism. And the third, ontological argument of Anselm was based on what? Of course, everyone knows. The answer is the existence of God. So dear friends, thank you